There's a few under here, Steve. I don't think they're cold though. And then there's a pause right there.
Got it. So I still need. It clicks.
And it clicks.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to day 2. My name's Mac Parrott. I'm with Projitech. First, I have one announcement. I'll introduce our speaker. From 1:30 to 2 this afternoon is going to be an added session, just a half hour long, on automation scripts. The infamous Stephen Shaw and more famous Brian Baird are going to talk about developing automation scripts, the advantages, and provide an overview of the capabilities in 7.5 and 7.6. That's at 1:30 to 2 in the Learning Lab. So if you get a chance, interested in some geeky stuff, stop by. It's an honor and a privilege to introduce our speaker today, and I guess Ricky is not available.
No, unfortunately he's not.
Unfortunately, it'll just be, well, unfortunately just be Steve, so we won't have Ricky's perspective. But it is an honor for me to introduce Steve. I've known him for almost 20 years. Proud to be a Projitecher for 17 or 18 of those. I know two things about Steve is he has a vision for cloud and had that vision back before cloud was cool. In fact, I think I did the first one in 1999 when we were just sorting things out, figuring things out, but we've learned an awful lot since then. And Steve's other passion is asset reliability. And I'd like to think that I contributed to that. I'll tell you a story how that might have happened. It was 10, maybe 15 years, maybe many of you might know that I fly. I fly Mooney airplanes. And so Steve and I had to see a client in Goshen, Indiana. So I said, Steve, I'll pick you up in Dayton. We'll fly up to Goshen so you'd save you some time. He said, yeah, I'm cool with that. Well, lo and behold, on the way to Dayton, had a little problem with the generator. And the voltage was dropping a little bit, but I landed and Steve was there and I said, boss, we got a little problem, but I think we'll be okay. So I described the problem to him and he said, yeah, I'm good with that. So we took off and I said, Steve, I need you to watch the voltmeter. It was 1965 model, it had a generator, but it had a digital voltmeter on the dash. And his eyes got big, but he kept his eyes glued to that voltmeter. I said, if it gets below 10 volts, we'll divert and charge the battery. But we made it to Goshen. He says, you are going to get it fixed, aren't you? I said, yeah, we'll see about that. So we landed and I talked to the shop and they said, we'll do what we can do. So the next day we came back. Shop says, we don't repair generators, but we charge the battery for you. You should be okay. Steve's eyes got big. We started up, headed back to Dayton. I dropped him off, and if I recall, I didn't even shut the engine off. He just kind of hopped out and grabbed his bag. And I took off back for Newcastle. But I think it's about that time Steve got quite active in the Society of Maintenance and Reliability Professionals. Always has a good passion for keeping assets reliable and keeping your environments, your maximo environments reliable. So with that, we go back a long ways, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Steve Richmond.
I was happy to get out of that airplane, but I always felt that it was the best thing for Mac because he didn't need an extra 210 pounds in there, given the circumstances. Thank you all for coming out. I know first thing in the morning, you'd think somebody would have given me a break, you know. We got the whole CEO thing going on, but nah. You get the 8 a.m. slot, Steve. So, unfortunately, Ricky Deere from Stanley's not going to be able to join us today. I've talked with him a few times over the last few weeks, and he's been helpful and instrumental in putting together some information here. We're going to talk about taking Maximo to the cloud, and the first part of this, I'll talk about the business case for it, and a little my passion will come out about why I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. In the second half, we'll talk from a customer's perspective, their experience and what happened with their system this past year. And we do have some people from Stanley here. Thank you very much for coming. They've all agreed to speak during the second hour and tell you about their experiences. Kidding with you. So we'll get started, okay? Maximo as a service has had a number of names in the last 16 or 17 years. As Mac alluded, we stood up our first Maximo system over the internet in 1999. We were using modems and some coax network equipment and Windows NT, some pretty archaic stuff by today's standards. And our first customer was a hospital in Dayton, Ohio. But the whole concept has always been that when people buy Maximo, typically it's a maintenance or a reliability group, sometimes a safety group inside of an organization. They buy a product to solve a problem. They want more reliable assets, they want better quality, throughput, production increases, they want to reduce downtime, they want a safer work environment for their customers. There's an inventory control, there's a laundry list of reasons why people would invest in a software product. And that's why companies like IBM exist, right? They have lots of solutions for all sorts of challenges. But I've always felt that fundamentally you don't buy a software product so that you can spend the rest of your career managing and maintaining a software product. It's, you have things to manage and maintain. You are in the business of manufacturing products or providing a service or transmitting power or generating power, but your business is not about the management of software applications. And once you take on a product as complex and as large as Maximo has become, particularly post IBM, since IBM's purchased Maximo has become a rather large application. There's a lot going on. And it takes a lot of horsepower, a lot of electronic horsepower to run the product well, to run it effectively. So our excuse me, our concept from the beginning was no hardware. You don't need any hardware. You don't need any software, and you're not going to have any more hassle. We're just going to take care of this. We want you to show up to do your job and have a fast, safe, reliable system, what you envisioned when you made your investment, available to you, current product, ready to go. And then you can do with it what you intended to originally, which is to make your business better, make your life easier, and to do your job a little more efficiently or effectively. So, excuse me, you got the morning frog here. You can't talk about Maximo as a service without licensing coming up. It's one of the first questions people want to talk about, so I thought I'd put one of the first slides up here about it. Licensing Maximo from IBM, simply a financial decision. Many people come to us, they've already bought Maximo, they own Maximo licenses. That's fine. I'm not in the cell licensing business. I'm in the Maximo as a service business, and frankly, we don't care if they're your licenses or if we provide them. We buy quite a bit of Maximo licensing from IBM. We have millions of dollars of product. Arguably might be their largest North American customer. So we buy at a pretty good, as you buy in volume, you get a pretty good deal. So we may be able to make a competitive offer that makes sense for you to walk away from your licenses, but it's dollars and cents, it's math. You put it down on a piece of paper. It makes sense for you to use your own seats and continue to pay your service and subscription to IBM annually, or to ride on our service where there is no charge for service and support over and above the as-a-service fees that come with our services. talk a little bit about features and benefits of Maximo in the cloud. Some of them are obvious and some of them are not so. But most importantly, I think, is cloud computing is not popular because some marketing people have developed some cute jingles. Cloud computing is not popular because people like looking at slides with pictures of the sky that have been taken from aircraft. Cloud computing is popular because it saves money. People are not spending billions and billions of dollars every quarter moving their companies to the cloud because it's fun, work involved, capital involved to do it. But the reason they do it is because over the term, it's cheaper. It saves money. There's less resources, both software-wise, hardware-wise, and human capital-wise. It is a better way of doing things because you're buying in scale, you know, just like the licensing conversation we just had. When you buy in bulk, the price gets better. So the big benefit that a lot of customers love about as a service is that their costs are known. It's going to be $100 this year and it's going to be $100 next year, as long as I don't dramatically change my user counts. You know, our service is based on number of named users. It follows the IBM model in terms of how many licenses do you have that are authorized or limited or of some special nature. But as long as you know what your user profiles are going to look like a year from now, you know what your costs are going to be for a year from now. There isn't any upgrades to budget for. There are no unknowns, hardware failures that were unscheduled. It's good, solid, budgetable services that you can count on. Another thing that we pride ourselves on is security. Many people still have paranoia about moving to the cloud, and they worry about where their data might be housed and how secure it might be when it leaves the premise. And I've always maintained that if you take your data from a data center that is part of your manufacturing facility, part of your corporate structure, inside your four walls, if you take that data and you move it somewhere else, it is intrinsically safer the day it moves. Regardless of any of the features of the new environment, it's safer. And it's safer because people don't know where it is. Where it is today, everybody knows where the data center is. It's in the west wing, it's down the hallway, it's the third doorway on the right. And it's available. People know how to get at it. Unhappy employees that didn't get the raise or the promotion, folks that share passwords. There's 100 reasons why data can be compromised on premise that are just simply eliminated by putting it in a different physical location. Their inability to get at it solves a lot of problems. We all read about data breaches every day. You know, the big famous ones are typically credit card accounts, it's Target and places like that where they're breached by hackers. Maximo folks are lucky in that we don't have anything nearly as interesting. They're not after our fan belt sizes or our grease fittings inventory counts. But the fact of the matter is that the breaches of data that you hear about only represent a small percentage of breaches that happen. Most breaches happen internally and nobody knows about them. It's bad PR. The company doesn't want to say, one of our DBAs got mad last week and erased a server. We fired him, but you know, we lost all that data. It's not the sort of thing you read in the newspaper. It happens every day. But short of just moving your data from on-premise into our data center, we use SoftLayer. We use IBM SoftLayer data centers in Dallas, Washington, Melbourne, and Sydney, Australia. We add to it BEA system security. It's military grade cybersecurity products. It's as a service, and we feel like it's the best product available today. And we had to have a lengthy conversation with IBM about this because obviously IBM has security products as well. We felt like BEA was the better choice, and we had to to jump through a few hoops to be able to introduce BEA's products into an IBM environment. But we've done that, and we're very pleased with it. And we feel like it's a level of security that is only available to some of the largest corporations. You have to be a very big company to afford cybersecurity products at the level that BEA comes in at. And again, it's our volume. We have hundreds of systems, and when we can buy a product and then blanket hundreds of systems with it, you know, the cost per system comes down very much so, and it's beneficial to our customers. I talked about the soft layer data centers. We're in 4 of them currently. There are 26 of them all over the world. It's just about as easy as picking a file up on a screen and moving it from one side of the screen to the other for us to set up another cloud and another data center in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Seattle, Hong Kong, wherever we might go next. So the ability to connect to our cloud from any device, your phone, your laptop, your iPad, kiosk somewhere in a hotel, an internet store in Costa Rica, it gives you the ability basically to work from anywhere. A lot of our customers are remote. A lot of our customers have wind and solar facilities in remote places, so the ability to connect from anywhere with any device over any type of bandwidth circumstance is very, very, very helpful, and this flexibility really benefits our customers tremendously. When we run into customers who are in the process of upgrading, we love to talk to them about Maximo in the cloud. If you're on version 6 or an early version of 7, we've run into some people this week that are still running version 5, and you're about to upgrade to the latest version of Maximo, 7603 or something along those lines, there's a cost associated with that when you're on premise, and that's a cost that people kind of just get used to. I'm going to upgrade next year, and you know what? I'm probably going to upgrade in 19, and I'm probably going to upgrade in 2021, and that's wrong-minded in my view. You didn't buy a product to be strapped with upgrade projects every year or every other year. When you're using our service, you will always be on current product, and when releases come out, we provide them. And it's part of what you pay for, and it's something that shouldn't disrupt your business. It should happen at 3 a.m. on Sunday, and the release notes should be in your inbox, and you should be about your business Monday morning. It should not be a disruption. And more importantly, it shouldn't be a capital expenditure. When CIOs ask me for pricing on upgrades, I always ask them, can I give you the multi-upgrade discount? Let me quote it for the next 6 years in a row, because if you stay on premise, you're just going to keep doing this. There isn't any end to it. I personally think it's kind of bad business. I mean, it's what companies like Microsoft and Oracle grew up on. They love it. There's a lot of money in upgrades, but from a customer's perspective, I've always felt like it was wrong. Our systems are generally available almost immediately. Few days, maybe a week, depends on the size and the complexity of the transition, how much of an upgrade's involved. But if you're on current product and you hand it to us today, you should be up and on within 24 hours. Sometimes it's up a little quicker than that, but we want to test it a little bit before we turn it over. But the transition time is very minimal, and it brings the time to value up. You can begin using the product right straight away. We have moved dozens of customers over the weekend. Take them down on Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock, and Monday morning they've gone from version 4.1 to version 7.5. And we did one every weekend for the better part of a year. So you get good at that when you repeat things. You do a lot of those. Very, very few Maximo systems live today without some sort of integration. The product just doesn't stand alone and have as much value as it might have 20 or 15 years ago. Integrating back to the mothership, to accounting products, to HR products, to staffing products, integrating from our cloud to other cloud-based products, Many companies are going 100% cloud, so they're using 365 and they're using NetApps, and they don't have a data center anymore. So all of our integration is from data center to data center on their behalf. Doing it appropriately, doing it quickly, and making sure it's all secure, it's all part of what we do, and we do a great deal of it. So again, it's not as complicated, it's not as difficult as it once was, and we've built a lot of automation tools that really help us through that. I talked about the fact that cloud computing was less expensive, and I just want to walk through a couple of visuals that help explain this. When you look at an on-premise system, there are software costs, there's power. A lot of people overlook the fact that servers use a lot of electricity, and as soon as they burn that electricity, they get hot, and then you have to run air conditioning systems to get rid of the heat that the servers have generated. So there's a considerable amount of power generated in the compute cycle. There's also on-site labor costs. There's network people, database people, security people, maintenance people, facilities people. When you have a data center on site, oftentimes in a sales cycle, we'll be told, well, we already have a data center. And my thought is, gee, I'm sorry to hear that, but it's not the right thing to say. What you need to try to convince people of is there are costs associated in running that data center. Whether you have one or not, if you have one, it's not free. There are things that go into operating that data center, and they're real live dollars, and they can be recaptured. You need new hardware from time to time. Maximo 7.6 is a little bit more of a hardware hog than the last product was, and so it goes. IBM writes good code. It's not necessarily the most efficient. So as the product gets more powerful and as it gets larger, it needs more compute, it needs more cycles, it needs more RAM. And that requires a hardware change on regular cycles. Again, that's part of our service. Our service provides refresh on all our hardware on a regular basis. That's part of our contract with Software. We get the latest and greatest hardware every 24 to 30 months, and it's just a rotational cycle. So always running on good, fast stuff. But if you look at the cloud side, you can see where deployment, software costs are smaller, power, labor, hardware costs, that's all savings down there at the bottom. It's just rolled into what you pay for. The other thing that a lot of people overlook on the software cost side is Maximo's one application in a stack of maybe 10. There's operating systems on those servers, there's database products, there's security products, there's middleware. There's all the things that go into making a Maximo stack work effectively and quickly. And those products have maintenance associated with them. I mean, IBM did not invent software maintenance. Every company charges some fee annually for the use of their products. And that ransom adds up across a stack of products. The strategic change capacity is that block on the upper right-hand side, and what I love to point out about it, that's liberated funding. That's funding to help you go do the initiatives that you probably bought Maximo to do it initially, right? To improve reliability, to improve your throughput, to help the quality of your products get better. The things that you wanted to do initially that you bought Maximo to do, you have the funding to do because you're saving money on the system that you've been babysitting for the last number of years. So our technical architecture includes the full solution. Bare metal servers, we build them out with operating systems. We provide mail delivery for Maximo administration, automation. We have proxy servers, intelligent networking. So I've got a data center in Washington, D.C., and I'm trying to get a nice fast path out to the beach, out to the Wallops Space Flight Center, NASA. The East Coast of the United States is very congested IP traffic, particularly late in the afternoon. And to get from a DC server to the coast is, you would think, a little easier said than, it is easier said than done. But what we have the ability to do, because IBM owns the fiber between all of their data centers and owns fiber between many points of presence all up and down the East Coast, is we can route our product through the fastest method. It's like using Google Maps. We know where the traffic jams are. We avoid the aggregation points, and we make sure that our product is snappy at NASA and quicker than what NASA was using before we came in and started providing NASA service. Our competition is on-premise product, and if we can't be faster than on-premise product, it's a tough sale. We are very proud of the fact that our stuff runs, and it runs very, very well, and we love to show it off next, side by side with on-premise stuff. But that intelligent networking is a big part of how we do that. We use SSL, secure protocols for everything, and we have highly available dock links. All of our stuff is redundant. You have virtual machine running your product here, and you have a mirrored image of that machine running over here. And if there's a problem with one, you fail to the second. Very seldom is this something that you're ever aware of. It's transparent to the user. Our systems simply run, and they run well. Inside of our technical architecture, we support Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, or DB2 databases. If you've got a preference, you can have what you want. Larry Ellison and the people at Oracle are very proud of their product, and they'll charge you a considerable amount of money to use it, and unfortunately we have to pass that cost along. Our system's default is SQL Server, and obviously IBM's happy to help us provide you with DB2 as well. We have all three of those in our data centers today. We use WebSphere for virtualization. I mentioned BAE. We use IBM Event Tracker. So for some customers that have validated environments, they need to know what happened and when in a very granular format. We can do that. It's part of our offering as well. And we have automated monitoring. Our systems typically tell us that there's a problem before it manifests itself in some performance degradation. We see processors that are running hot. We see queries that maybe have gotten caught in a loop, and we're able to react to that before it ever impacts the performance of the system for clients. A lot of that's done after hours by a product called PagerDuty, but essentially our data centers will ping our people if they sense there's something going on that needs personal attention. The other thing that we've done in the last few years, I talk about speed of delivery and how quickly the application runs, is we build the front end of our systems with solid state drives. Solid state drives are many, many times faster than traditional spinning platters, and they're extremely expensive. There are few people today that provide SSDs at the front end of their application for performance enhancement. It's standard for us, has been for almost 2 years. It is something that we felt necessary because it just improves performance, and again, it's vital for us to have a better system than what your alternative is. I can give you cheaper, but I gotta give you faster and better along with cheaper, right? And faster and better is what makes it fun. SSDs are a huge change for us. At the end of the day, you can throw processors and RAM at an application, and you can impact a certain amount of performance by overclocking and giving it more than it needs. But at the end of the day, the bottleneck with Maximo is the read-write to the drive. How quickly, what are the I/O capabilities? And with old platters, even some very sophisticated storage systems, 1500, 1600, 1800 IOs a second, we've almost doubled that with solid state. And it just makes, the system just rocks. It's fast stuff, fun stuff. We have a higher level of redundancy because we use VMware for fault tolerance. It ensures high availability, and we use it throughout the entire stack. So we have a replica of your system in another data center, in another city at all times. And in the event of some catastrophic problem, an earthquake, a tornado, some natural disaster, and we were to lose an entire data center, all of our things are designed to fail over. Disaster recovery is not necessarily a part of every data center corporately. They might have a book on a shelf that somebody wrote a number of years ago about this is how we would approach it. It's very seldom that those plans are reviewed annually. It's even less likely that they have ever executed on that plan to see if it actually works. We back systems up 3 different ways and in 3 different physical locations. We have to secure your data. You've entrusted it to us, and that's our job. It's job 1 for us. So getting you back up and on in the event of a problem is very important to us. And I don't think a lot of people look at disaster recovery and high availability with the same lens that they should. Again, compared to what you have on premise today, I will put our availability and our disaster recovery capabilities up against just about any corporate systems I've seen so far. This is an eye chart. You don't want to know what all this is. It is the architecture of one of our data centers today. That's how we built it out. This is version 3.0 of our cloud. This started in 2014. We finished it last year. Architecturally, what we've done is we've tried to isolate areas where once you get in, if there is an intrusion, one of the biggest problems that a lot of data centers have in general is the way they defend themselves, right? It was a corporate data center. It was built originally to provide information to the entire corporation. And, the original configuration was open architecture, right? We wanted people to be able to touch it, ask questions, connect to it. And what has happened over the last 25 years is we've started to lock that system down because we don't want it that open. We don't want it that available. It's dangerous for everybody to be able to get at it. And so they build a wall around it, right? Some sort of defense perimeter is the most common approach. And the challenge with that is that there's 1,000 ways to get in. Silly things you never would have thought of. I read an article yesterday about, I think it was an MIT class, that proved that they could harmonically listen to a fan on a server and hack the box. They were able to get in through the power circuit on the fan, the cooling fan of a server. The ways to get into technology environments today are growing exponentially. And just building a wall around it's not going to work. Once they're inside the wall, once the Trojan gets in, you got a big problem. Most architected environments, once you're in, you can go anywhere you want to go. And that's where the challenges come from. You read about some of these breaches. Sony had a breach a year and a half ago. Somebody got in. The problem Sony had is they didn't know where they were, where they went, what they got, or where they had been inside their systems. And it all had to do with an expired SSL certificate. And 6 days after the breach, they still had not closed the port that allowed the original breach. 6 days after, it cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. And 6 days after it happened, they still hadn't cured the breach because they didn't know. They simply didn't know. So what Mark Eaton, my CIO, did along with his team is they built an architecture differently. We didn't want 1,000 different ways to get in. In fact, we only wanted one way in. And our philosophy was there's one point of entrance, we control it, we monitor it, we put all the security products we can at that singular point. And what we've done is we have created a very limited target footprint. You can't attack our entire cloud. There's only one piece of our cloud you can get a peek at. And everything past this box down here is behind firewall after device after firewall after device. So even if someone were to penetrate it, then they got to do it all over again. You're going to have to get about 5 or 6 layers deep into our systems to get at anything interesting. It's built very, very well, and it's something we're very proud of. And for people that like to talk about that kind of stuff, you know, I'd love to hook you up with Mark. He'll talk your ear off. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So let's talk about the economy as a solution. We've talked about Maximo licensing. Let's take Maximo out of the picture. I need the infrastructure to run Maximo. I need servers, I need storage, I need networking, security, I need everything it is to run a Maximo system. And the bar on the left represents the cost of a system built out large enough to run a couple hundred user Maximo system. You know, pick a number. The bar on the right represents what SoftLayer would sell you the same computing capabilities for you to do it yourself in their data center. So as you can see, there's a significant change there. And these costs come out of this graph again, but what we're looking at here again is electrical power, the data center facilities, the infrastructure, software licenses, hardware components, again. But this is SoftLayer, right? This is what SoftLayer says it costs you to operate this Maximo system on premise, and this is what their cost is on premise. No Maximo licensing in this, right? You have an investment on premise. You have to buy software licenses, server components, network equipment. The data center facilities has a cost associated with it, and there's a capital investment of nearly $30,000. Your monthly cost to operate that same equipment that you just spent 30 grand on runs in the neighborhood of $4,500. You can get the same horsepower, you can buy the same components, the same juice, the same mileage systems from SoftLayer, and SoftLayer is not cheap, right? You can go to AWS or Microsoft Azure or Rackspace, you can do better. But it is less money to operate that same amount of compute off premise than it is on. Ma'am, sir, thank you. So I talk about economies of scale. This is our body count today for we have 611 virtual machines, 140 terabytes of storage, 6 terabytes of RAM. We have purchased millions of dollars of IBM product in the last few years. We have a lot of it. And consequently, we buy this stuff in these bulk quantities. It gives us good economies. We're a focused provider. This is all we do. We just run Maximo, right? So our people do it every day. They get up every day to make sure Maximo is up and on. And we are not wrapped up in the corporate noise of whatever the problem of the day is, as a manufacturer or generating company might be. We always keep you on current product by doing regular updates and doing them all the time. Microsoft patches, SQL Server patches, Maximo patches. We just take care of it. It happens. You don't have to worry about it. It doesn't disrupt your business. From a mobility perspective, we've got an open borders policy, right? We take everybody. Apple, Android, Windows. If you have a BlackBerry, I'm sorry, but we will support it. Okay. We've got probably a dozen different mobility tools in our cloud, and all of them come with their pluses and their minuses. So benefits: it's faster, more responsive, and you have known operational expense. So let's talk a little bit about Stanley. I went too long with that, and I apologize. Why did Stanley Electric take Maximo to the cloud? Anybody recognize that lady? You wouldn't come up here on stage with me. Okay. It was a pretty good party last night, wasn't it? So Stanley was founded in 1920, began in the U.S. in '79. They make a lot of things, but here in Ohio, they make automotive headlights, right? Located in London, Ohio. It's just a little south and west of Columbus, as I recall. From prototype through mass production, they do it all right under one roof. Pretty fascinating place, actually. A little less than 1 million square feet. So when we met these folks, they were running versions 7505, Microsoft SQL Server 12, about 180 users, and they've got some HR integration. They're keeping track of personnel records from HR. This is their log-on screen to Maximo. As I recall, we took you down on a Friday for a few hours, and I think before midnight it was back up, but I don't think you actually got back to it until maybe Monday. Is that about right? But again, it's over a weekend. I include the SQL Server upgrade. We use some products for what we call maintenance request portals. These are for non-Maximo licensed people to make requests. In Stanley's environment, they have 2 of these portals, and one is more traditional maintenance and reliability type requests, and the other is more safety and health. Is that the division? Okay. I think. When Stanley came to us, we offered them as a service, and they had a couple other companies that were talking to them about on-premise. So these are not my numbers, but this is how they arrived at this, and you get copies of all these presentations so you can study these numbers. But they looked at this from how much in-house support were they giving the system currently, network people, DBAs, security folks, what their subscription fees were, what kind of software support they were paying to IBM, and what kind of implementation services they were gonna need to do to justify this move. They baked in software server licenses and then looked at what it was costing them to administer to Maximo, what an FTE would be like to manage and maintain their system, and they baked those costs into their analysis. Some of the things that we provided, which are kind of easy when you do what we do, it's a little more difficult when you're an off-site provider, but you know, obviously we have online training, we upgrade the systems, we guarantee 4 or 5 nines of availability. Our folks answer the phone and help you out personally whenever you have a challenge. We just take care of all this stuff, and those are hard things for people to provide you at no charge when they're not part of your organization or when you're not riding in their cloud. So the numbers came out that were fairly straightforward, pretty close actually, but again, this is the last time they have to upgrade. They don't have to go through this exercise again. They simply use the product, improve what they do in their company, and continue to make great products. So maybe we could ask some Stanley people, well, maybe 3 of them are talking to me. Can you share maybe what's better with Maximo today that it might have been before we moved over?
It's a lot less burden on our IT department.
Less burden on the IT department? How's it better for you?
Whenever I have a question, I have an answer right away.
Get away from the double entry, didn't you? Yeah. Forgot about that already.
I'm not talking.
Yeah.
I think it's also, like you said at the beginning, it's a lot of the server room up. I mean, I see that directly because we have to maintain the HVAC, we have to maintain all the electric, UPS, all that stuff, and we've been continually upgrading that probably over the last 10 years, I would say. And anything we can get out of that room, quite honestly, is helpful to facilities, and it's also helpful to the IT section. I know Ricky he obviously wanted to be here, but he has a tremendous load. I mean, that section has a tremendous load, and it's a production load. I mean, it's for our production operation.
Right.
So anything that he doesn't have to maintain for the production operation, or anything additional, he doesn't have to, he can focus on that production. So I think that's really their benefit. I mean, the matrix that you put up here that was on the screen was the comparison. Why should we keep it in-house? Why should we, put it in the cloud? And that was the decision that we made as a group. I mean, I remember Doug and myself and Ricky and Cindy, who was involved at the same time, really sit down and we said, this is how we're gonna sell this to our management team. This is how we're gonna sell it, and this is why we're gonna, say we're gonna move it. It's cost, but it's also a tremendous load off of the IT section. So I think that's really.
I think IT was at the point where they were going to hire another person in the department, so,
So they were looking at another employee to help out with that.
yeah,
Makes sense.
they just didn't have it.
You still got any questions? Does anybody have any questions for the folks this evening? I was really sorry I really couldn't make it. That was disappointing, but I'd much rather heard from him than me, but I did my best to listen to it, so, okay. Any other questions for me?
I have one for you, Steve. My question is, are the majority of your customers running SQL databases versus Oracle or DB2? What do you see as a mix?
The majority is SQL for sure, as our default, as our go-to. thanks for hooking me up. I appreciate it. I got my drive.